Hey guys, welcome back to the Bobcat Broadcast. My name is Jackson Trumbull, your host, and this is your weekly news. But before we get started, this is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand, put your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Hi, welcome back to the Bobcat Broadcast. Today we have Rachel Fernell, our 5th grade teacher. Today we'll ask you a few questions. So, Rachel, why did you decide to come to OVO?
I actually got the opportunity to come to OVO this is my 3rd year here. And so it kind of landed in my lap. So it was like this really golden opportunity and I took it.
Yeah. What is your favorite book?
My favorite book, I actually really like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. We're in the middle of it. And it is just such a good book and very relatable. So I enjoy that one quite a bit.
What is your favorite food?
My favorite food, that one's a hard one. Really like Mexican food. I also really like sushi.
Yes.
I'd say those two are probably my favorite.
Yeah. What is your favorite type of music?
Ooh, my favorite type of music? Definitely country music. Always has been.
How long have you been teaching?
I have been teaching for almost 7 years. I think this is my 7th year. I taught a little bit in Chico, and I taught in Natomas, and then I've taught in San Juan Unified.
Yeah. When and why did you start teaching?
I started teaching when I was 22, 23, something like that. And I always used to pretend that I was a teacher when I was little, and I used to boss my brothers around.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to be a teacher. Yeah. So I started right after high school, going to college for teaching.
Yeah. Thank you. That's
You're
it.
welcome.
And also, thank you for watching this week's teacher interview.
Hey you! Do you want to look stylish like the cool kids like me? Well, you should head on to the student store to buy your pair of Orangevale Physical Education blue and orange shorts for only $2. They're pretty cheap.
Birthdays for this week are December 11th, Jameson A., Cindy's class, 1st grade. December 11th, Emmett S., Christina's class, 1st grade. December 12th, Adelina M., Cindy's class, 1st grade. December 14th, Kendall H., Anna's homeroom, 6th grade. December 15th, Seth J., Heidi's class, 3rd grade. December 17th, Gregory W., Tina's class, 3rd grade. December 14th, Ashley W., Lonnie's class homeroom, 7th grade. Come to the student store to pick up your free pencil.
All right, now it's time for Joke of the Week. So Daxton,
What, Robbie?
what do snowmen wear on their heads?
Top hats? I don't know.
Ice caps. I meant to look forward. There ain't no fun no more.
Yeah! The upcoming event for this week will be Winter Wonderland. Winter Wonderland is a week full of winter activities. That's all for this week.
The weather forecast this week is an average high of 53 and an average low of 40. I recommend wearing a jacket and pants to stay warm. That's the weather forecast for this week.
Go.
This week's lunches are Monday, chicken corn dog or grilled cheese sandwich. Tuesday, chicken drumstick with roll or bean and cheese quesadilla. Wednesday, orange chicken with rice or sun butter and jelly sandwich. Thursday, chicken nuggets and crackers or nacho
pretzel pocket, or Friday, pepperoni stuffed sandwich, or Galaxy cheese pizza?
Now it's time for class spotlight. User Charlie visited the fourth graders and told them a bunch of stories that were made by the Native Americans.
I wish to nominate that dog. That's I'm sorry. It's a great story. I can't help myself. All right. Hey, I'm so sorry I missed you for music last year. That was really hard.
That's all for class spotlight.
Hi, my name is Sophia McKenzie. I'm in 8th grade, and I'm a Commissioner of Service.
Hi, my name is Wyatt Ratcliffe. I'm in 7th grade, and I am part of the community.
And this is Caitlin. So Caitlin, please introduce yourselves and tell us what you do.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to meet you, and I'm going to try to use a little bit of technology to introduce myself. So I'm going to share my screen here and hop into a keynote presentation. So are you seeing that on your screens now?
Yes.
Coming through. Awesome. So this is me. My name is Caitlin Santos, and I am a sled dog musher who lives in the interior of the state of Alaska. So we live just outside Denali National Park. So it's about halfway between Anchorage and Fairbanks. I live here with my husband, Mike, and our son, Max. And we have a whole bunch of sled dogs. So we have adult dogs, we have puppies, and we have used these sled dogs to train for and compete in the Iditarod race. My husband, Mike, he's the one who has done the competitive racing, but my son, Max, and I help with all of the things that it takes to get ready for the Iditarod race. So the Iditarod up here in Alaska is what people in other parts of the United States might associate with March Madness. March Madness is, when everybody thinks about the college basketball, but up here it is Iditarod, Iditarod, Iditarod. So the excitement that other places feel for different sports, we feel for sled dog sports. And you can see the dogs themselves show that excitement. So you asked about, training, and this is a big part of what I do for it, is to help the dogs get ready for the race. So we have to start training before there is snow on the ground. So we spend time training dogs attached to a four-wheeled vehicle. And we're able to take them on trails to start to condition them. The Iditarod race itself is 1,000 miles long. And during the race, the dogs are running upwards of 100 miles a day. So we have to condition them to get ready for that. So starting in about August, the dogs start running a couple miles a day. And then like any sport you were training for, as you get more conditioned, you can go farther and farther. We train a lot of dogs. The Iditarod race is run with 14 dogs, but just like other sports teams, we have more athletes in training than ultimately are maybe competing on the field at one time. So sometimes we'll hook dogs for our pickup truck so we can take big numbers of them, and we go longer and longer, and eventually there's enough snow on the ground that we can start using sleds. I was saying that today is November 17th, and it's about 20 below outside. We do have snow, enough snow that now that we can use a sled. Really, the big thing with the sled is not having enough snow to slide. It slides on very little snow, but stopping. The dogs have a lot of power, so you need to have enough snow base that you can use your brake and stop the dogs. The Iditarod Trail goes across the state of Alaska. So here's the big city of Anchorage down in the sort of southern part. I've lost my cursor, but it goes up across the interior of the state and ends in Nome. In addition to training the dogs, we have to prepare all of our supplies for the race. You send everything out that you need. So this is a picture of all of the supplies for all of the mushers going out on the trail one year. There's usually somewhere between 50 and 70 teams that compete, and each one of them is putting together all of these bags of supplies to send to all the different checkpoints where they're going to stop with their team. The majority of what we send out is dog food. So it's a lot of work to prepare all of this dog food, to cut the meat. She's holding a piece of beef that's cut into, basically it's the shape of a stick of butter. So you can give it to the dogs as a snack. The dogs eat dog kibble as well as meat. And then when you're out on the trail, all those bags of gear are waiting for you. So as you are making your way, you can get these supplies and use them to feed your dogs. These supplies will be located at the checkpoints that we saw on the map. So you come through these checkpoints, and at the checkpoints, you can stop for a rest, or you can keep going with the supplies. The Iditarod Trail takes you up and over the Alaska Range Mountains. The mushers run in the dark as well as in the light. So there can be some challenging terrain to go through. Mushers work at steering their sleds, but the dogs really are the athletes. As the musher, you're really coaching the dogs. You're making sure that they're getting what they need, breaks when they need breaks, food when they need food, and the kind of attention to make sure they stay in good shape throughout the race. The checkpoints from above look like this. The dogs are taking rests, and all of those little sort of yellow spots are pieces of straw. So the dogs are lying on little beds of straw, taking a break. And they're going to stop at these checkpoints anywhere between like 4 and 12 hours, depending on how long that they've been running. You'll be running across frozen rivers and lakes. There'll be different conditions of snow where you might have to sort of break trail. You'll cross different creeks. The dogs sometimes even go through overflow where the water is not frozen. The liquid water has gotten up on top of the ice. They climb up glaciers. So there's a whole lot of challenges for the dogs and the mushers. You can see it gets very cold on the trail. You're saying it's 20 below right now at our place. 67 below zero is the lowest recorded temperature that my husband has raced in. And that does not include any wind chill. They'll travel a lot along the Yukon River, which is a massive river that goes through the state of Alaska. And that there's a lot of villages along the river, and it's really exciting for the villages to have the race come through. They put the checkpoints at the village. You can see they're pretty small towns, you know, like our school. At our small town in Alaska, we only have a total of 8 students this year. Some schools will, you know, be a little bit larger, but the towns are very glad to see the mushers and have the excitement of something coming through. Here you can see a smaller checkpoint where there's just a few bales of straw there. So the mushers make their way along. The kids get excited to see them. Ultimately, they make their way off the river, but you might also wonder about sort of how are the mushers finding their way to Nome? There are trail markers. This one is one of the permanent trail markers because the people who live in these interior villages of the state, they're also using these same trails. But the race also puts some temporary markers out to help you find them. So the dogs learn to follow these markers. The mushers follow the markers. Ultimately, you get off of the river and you get to the Bering Sea coast. And when you get to the coast, you can see that the wind becomes a significant factor. You can see how the snow is completely blown over that one road that goes through this little town. You can see how the wind can affect the visibility. So it can be really tricky to see. And as I was saying, when the wind is blowing, it's extra cold for the mushers and for the dogs. The dogs actually run on frozen ocean. Up here near the end of the race, you can see chunks of ocean ice that get pushed up. And here you can sort of see a aerial view of down onto the dogs running on the frozen ocean ice. But ultimately, they make their way into Nome, and then they can fly home on an airplane so you don't run back. So that's sort of a little overview of who I am and what I do. I mentioned a little bit about training, which you might want to ask me.
Have you ever been hurt racing?
So I have not been hurt, nor has my husband been significantly hurt. I mean, there's lots of small things. People ask about frostbite sometimes. Frostbite, you know, everybody's going to get some frostbite, and it's not necessarily very significant. Little bits on your cheeks, you know, tips of fingers, but no significant injuries to the musher. There have also not been significant injuries on our team to the dogs. If a dog gets injured in any way, the musher is responsible for taking care of the dog and getting it to the next checkpoint where there would be veterinarians to help. But most of the injuries are small things, maybe a twisted ankle, a sprained ankle.
Has your sled ever become stuck?
It has not. it is much easier for the sled to get away from you and go too much than to get stuck somewhere. Sometimes you can get in really deep snow going uphill, and the dogs can start to think, hey, maybe she wants us to take a break because they're feeling like an increased resistance. So you're not exactly stuck like the sled being physically stuck somewhere, but sometimes you have to convince your dogs to go. So knowing a little bit of the dog psychology there, and I'm sure your teachers do this with you at school, where it's like, oh, I can see that everybody needs a break. So I'm going to tell them to take a break before they all decide to take a break on their own. And so you might say, okay, take a break, and then give the dogs a couple of minutes and then ask them to go again, and they'll pull the sled again. But the sled hasn't physically been stuck by something.
What happens if your dog gets injured during a race?
Yeah, so you have to take care of the dog. Before the race, the dogs get a really thorough checkup. So they have a veterinarian give them a physical exam. Their blood is drawn, and they check all the different levels in the blood to make sure that any signs of injury or anything that could be concerning. Or interestingly, they look at how one dog might be different than the rest of the dogs in one team to just look for sort of differences there. And then they also give them an EKG that checks their heart rhythms before the race. So starting out in the race, we know the dogs are in really good condition. And then at every checkpoint, the veterinarians are checking the dogs, the mushers are checking the dogs. And if you find an injury, you're taking care of it. You can withdraw a dog from your team if there was any concern for the dog. So you might say, something doesn't seem quite right today about Twain. I'm going to leave him here and go on with less dogs. I said the race, mushers will start with 14 dogs and you can finish with as few as 5 dogs. So it's normal for them to leave some behind sort of preventatively to make sure that they're okay. The biggest things that I was saying before that might happen to a dog would be something like a sprained wrist. Wrists get sore, and so you can treat the wrists. You can put little sort of massage ointments on them. You can wrap them that keeps them warm and limber. You cannot give the dogs any medicine that is like Tylenol or Advil, anything that could mask a pain. So if you think the dog is sore in a way that's painful, then you're going to withdraw the dog from your team.
Is there anything we haven't asked you that you would like to share?
So you might want to know, why do people do this? And it's just so compelling to see the dogs do what they can do and how much they love what they can do. I didn't put any videos in what I showed you, but if you were to come to a kennel like mine, or if you were to go to the start of a sled dog race, it would be noisy. The dogs would all be barking with excitement and sort of lunging forward into their harnesses. And so that desire of the dogs to go and do what they do and the incredible abilities that they have, I think that's what compels mushers to do it. And you get to just travel through the most remarkable parts of the world. It is beautiful countryside. You'll see wildlife while you're out there with the dogs. It's really, really remote. And you get to have some cultural experiences too. The villages are very unique places to go through.
Thank you so much, Caitlin, for talking about your experiences and your job.
You're welcome.
On this day in history, December 13th, 1989, the singer-songwriter Taylor Swift was born. It's also National Violin Day. Stay safe, Bobcats!